Hello creeps! Andy here. Today is the last video of September. We're almost in October. So I just have my reading wrap up for you guys. I'm doing it a few days early, but I'm going to start a longer book, so I'm not going to finish any more books this month. But let's just go through everything I read this month. As always, please feel free to leave a comment and let me know what you guys read this month and how you felt about it. A lot of it was on Kindle. I'm actually really enjoying the Kindle, surprisingly. I never thought I would be a Kindle gal. I used to only like physical copies of books, but I don't know. I'm liking it. It's actually very convenient. So anyways, oh god, you scared me. How did you sneak in here? I didn't hear you at all.
Oh, you take the dogs out.
Anyways, okay, the very first book that I read was The Tent by Kealan Burke. So this one is actually a little novella, and it's about a family that goes camping in the middle of a storm. Well, I guess they go camping before the storm comes in, and they end up getting lost in the mountains because their gear kind of gets torn apart by the wind and weather and stuff. And it's a man, a woman, and their son. And first the son goes missing, and you can tell that there's issues with their marriage. And actually, the thing that really impressed me with this one, well, I guess let me get through the synopsis of the story. Basically, they find this tent in the middle of the woods, and they don't know exactly what it is, and it turns out to be much different than I thought that it was going to be. But the character development was really impressive for such a short story. It really reminded me of like a Stephen King story, because you have this man who's kind of belittled in his existence, and he's trying to save his marriage. Every line in the beginning of the story up until a certain point is like so poignant and is perfect for the story. I don't know, this one really impressed me with the character development and stuff. Not a story I would typically read or that I would like, but I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was cute. It's a cute little fun summer story, you know? The next one that I read was Paul Tremblay's horror movie. Now, I have mixed feelings about this one. The Tent, I think I rated 4 stars. Horror movie, I think I rated like a 3.8-ish stars. So usually I enjoy Paul Tremblay's work. The few books that I've read from him, I've really liked. This one was quite different from his other work. It's about a man. Oh, let me let the cat out. Are you gonna be good? What do you mean no? It's about this man, and he's the only surviving member of this cast that created this horror movie many years before. Clips of this horror movie have been uploaded, and it's developed some sort of fan base around it, but the whole movie was never released. So essentially what happens is people are trying to, like, Hollywood is trying to come in and recreate the movie, to redo the movie, to remake the movie. That's what I'm trying to find. So you have the story of our main character. I don't have this one on me because my friend is reading it right now, but you have the story of our main character who was in the original cast, and now he's, you know, speaking with different people in Hollywood to try to get the movie made. And then you also have interspersed in there is the actual original supposedly script that took place, like that their very original script from back in the day. So you go through, and like the characters are definitely odd, and the horror movie that was made is definitely weird. Yeah, and it's just an odd little book. What I will say, for a horror book called Horror Movie, there's very little horror in it. And there are definitely some creepy scenes. Actually, one of you DM'd me and we were talking about this book, and you said, I wished it was weirder like Negative Space. And that was the exact book that came to mind when I was reading this one, because it felt like it was trying to be weird, but it wasn't quite weird enough to hold my attention the whole time. But I didn't hate it the way other people did, because I know this book has, you kind of either love it or hate it. I did enjoy the ride, and it was interesting reading the script. I didn't have any problems with that. I know some people don't like the structure of it, which is totally understandable and fair. It just wasn't as creepy as I would have hoped that it was. And definitely there are a few creepy scenes where I'm like, oh, that was fun. But I wish it pushed the boundaries a little bit more. However, and I don't know if everyone feels this way about this book, but I do feel like it was Paul Tremblay's fuck you to Hollywood. And that's quite interesting considering his there was a movie made from his book, The Cabin at the End of the World. I did a whole movie versus book on that. I'll leave that linked down below. And I kind of did rip the movie to shreds. I don't know. I don't know if that was his intention, but there are a lot of comments about like, fuck that, I'm not in Hollywood. I think Paul Tremblay is like a math teacher or something. So he seems like a normal, down-to-earth guy. And so I don't know if that was the intent of this book, to be like, fuck Hollywood, fuck, you know, you taking my book and ruining it. I think that's kind of cool. So I don't know, let me know what you guys think about this one in particular. I know it evokes powerful emotion, so you know, whichever way that you liked it, I'm just curious to know. The next one that I read was Ghost Camera by Darcy Coates, and this is actually a novella with a bunch of short stories mixed with it, so it's like a book of stories from her. And the initial story, Ghost Camera, sorry, this was actually published prior. It was one of her first self-published stories, and then it was recently republished into this version. What I will say is the Ghost Camera story didn't really hold my attention. It was fine, like there was nothing wrong with it or anything, but it was just an okay story. It's about this woman who finds a camera, and then every time she takes a picture, a ghost pops up in it, and then she goes on this whole adventure trying to figure out what it was and why they're there, and you know, all sorts of stuff. So that story was okay. However, there are quite a few truly creepy stories in this collection, and I don't read a ton of short story collections, but you know, I love Darcy Coates, and so I'm gonna pick up anything that she writes. So I was curious for this one. I had kind of low expectations, but yeah, there were genuinely some creepy stories in here. This one just says there's a woman who survives a plane crash in the Arctic. There's one about a house that stands empty hungry, and a woman who finds a shoebox filled with old VHS tapes. They have a note attached, don't watch, you'll regret it. So there are some creepy, fun stories in here. Not my favorite Darcy Coates, but like, you know, not bad or anything. The next one that I read, however, was Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. Now this is I think it's a Barnes & Noble. Yeah, this is the exclusive edition from Barnes & Noble. And I mean, come on, look at this. Hold on, let me freaking get my cat out of here. And same with the Paul Tremblay book. I wish I had it with me, but the details on that book, 10 out of 10. It looks like a VHS tape. Even the horror movie print on it looks kind of like, you know, I don't know if you guys are as old as I am, but you know when you used to watch VHS tapes when you were younger and they would kind of like skip? That's how the writing is on it. So much detail went into that. All of the chapters have like the little, you know, to cut scenes, whatever those things are called. So 10 out of 10 for the design. Same with this book. I mean, so fucking cool, right? It looks exactly like a VHS tape. And then this is like the container that you slip it in. I don't know if you guys remember VHSs. So this one is about a woman who is taking care of her sick mother, her siblings not helping at all, and everything's kind of like a burden on her. Her brother's very well established in his career, is making good money. Her sister is an addict, and their father left them when they were younger. So what happens is they all go back into town after the mother passes away, and they find a box of VHS tapes and they play it, and on one of them it looks like their parents are hiding a body. So they're like, what is going on? What is happening? And they start doing more digging to try to figure out the story and if it is what it actually looks like. So cool concept for a book. I have heard people have mixed feelings on this one. I mean, that's probably true for every book, right? However, I will say, for the family drama aspect of this book, I loved it. I thought that this book was so good, and I really connected to the character. I read this and I went, is this my life story? Because you have our main character who takes care of their sick mom, doesn't really get much help. It's just kind of all on her shoulders. And then you also have the addict in the family. And I've told you guys that we had a family member living with us. And what I really loved about this story was the description of addiction, not from the addict's point of view. So addiction is not something that just affects the person that is addicted. It affects the entire family. And it is true, I'm sure not in every case, but it is true that certainly addiction changes people and it turns them into monsters. I won't go into too much detail, but like the letting someone in your house and doing everything you can for them and then them stealing your shit to buy drugs. Even worse things, like the stories I could tell you, you know? And so it has nothing to do with love. It has absolutely nothing to do with love, but you get to the point where you're like, I can't help you anymore because you don't want to be helped, and this is not benefiting me or you in the situation. So I loved that aspect of the story. Everything with the addiction, I was like, yep, oh, yep, okay, yeah. And then getting the family involved with dangerous people and just being so fucking selfish and doing horrible things. And it's not that addicts are horrible people, but addiction does really make you do horrible things. So I really loved that aspect of the story. I really connected to it because of that. And so for just a family drama, I really, really liked this. The thriller aspects I still thought were fun. I still enjoyed it. And it wasn't one of those where I knew for certain at the beginning exactly what was going on. I think you do figure out as the story continues, or at least I had it narrowed down, you know? But there were still twists and turns in here that I didn't see coming. So yeah, I actually did really enjoy this one. This one I'm pretty sure I gave a 4 stars too. The next one that I read was Vanish. This is, I think, the 5th in the Rizzoli and Isles book series. Love this one. Love Tess Gerritsen. I mean, these books are just so freaking fun. This one was a little bit harder to get through. It's about sex trafficking, and so you do get a lot more information on like women's perspectives who enter the country illegally, being promised that great things will happen for them, and then just being sold into this, you know, sex work. And it's just awful and horrendous and horrible what these women had to go through. Basically what happens is there's a woman that gets taken into the morgue, and so you have Maura Isles, she's the medical examiner, and she ends up going into the freezer and finding that that woman isn't actually dead. So she was ruled dead, she's been in the freezer for however long, but she finds that she's alive. So she ends up bringing or calling the ambulance to get her taken to the hospital, and no one knows who she is, how she got there, anything. And obviously all the stories like eventually connect and stuff, but really interesting. I have not particularly loved Jane Rizzoli in the first few novels, so this book was actually really refreshing. You kind of get to see her a little bit more laid back is a bad term because she's in such high stress situations, but you get to see a different side of her, and I really, really like that. You see a lot of humor in her as she's going through these horrible things. So yeah, I really like that. You get to see her, she has a baby in this one, so you see her become a mother, and like there's just a very big arc with her character, whereas she kind of annoyed me in the beginning. I actually like her now, so I did enjoy that one. And next up, I read The Woman in Black. This is by Susan Hill, and this one I've had for a long time. I know that there have been various movies made about this one. I didn't particularly like the movie, so I didn't know how I'd like the book. It's about this man named Arthur. Yes? Is that your name, sir? And he goes to these salt marshes to attend the funeral and kind of settle the final documents of this woman named Mrs. Drablow. But every time he mentions her name or where he's headed, everyone near the town just gets spooked out, and they don't even want to be near him. They don't want to talk about her. They don't want to talk about the house that she lived in. They're just kind of weirded out. So he ends up going to her funeral and seeing a woman there. And he doesn't know at first why everyone's so spooked when he starts talking about her. But then when he goes to the house to go through her documents, he sees the woman again and is starting to think, maybe she's not a living human after all. Maybe it's the ghost of somebody around the house. He also hears some creepy things out on the marshes. It's a very atmospheric read, and to be honest, it's a slow burn, but the ending really did surprise me. So I still liked this one. I mean, I'm glad that I read it, and it's a classic book, you know? So yeah, I gave this one, I think, a 4-star too. Maybe a 3.9 or a 3.8. I gave that one. The next one, The Day of the Door by Laurel Hightower. This is about a family who, when they were younger, they kind of suffered the physical and mental abuse of their mother, who was kind of, you know, not all there, it seemed. Their older brother, there's 4 of them, the oldest brother dies in a way where the 3 younger siblings, or at least some of them, it's hard to tell, but when they're younger, they certainly think the mother had something to do with his death. But as they grow older, the youngest daughter, and all of them have been so traumatized from their childhood, rightfully so, that the youngest daughter is kind of willing to connect to the mom to forgive her for everything if they can move on from the story that the mother has always told, which is the house was haunted. So they end up going back to the original house, meeting with the mom, with these paranormal investigators who are shooting an episode of their show about ghost hunting, to really get to the bottom and try to figure out what actually happened in the family home when they were younger. There are some creepy scenes in this one, certainly, but one, I'm not big on ghost stories. You guys know that. So unless it's above and beyond, I'm usually not going to connect with it. Like, it's pretty hard for me to connect with ghost stories. This one, however, it went back and forth so much. Oh, it's a ghost story. No, the mom's just crazy. Oh, it's a ghost story. No, it's not. Oh, yes, it is. Oh, wait, no, it's not. It went back and forth so much. At the end, I was like, I don't even care. I don't even care if it's a ghost story or not. This one wasn't for me, but I still did enjoy a lot of aspects about it. And I will read more work from this writer, especially if there's less potentially paranormal stuff going on, because I did find the story interesting. A few things I wasn't quite sure why they were there or why they happened, but all in all, amazing cover of the book. I mean, the cover is just fantastic. And yeah, if you just want maybe ghost story and some creepy scenes, this one might be for you. I gave this one a 3.5. Next, I read Toxic Apple Turnovers. This was my cozy mystery of the month, my Murder in the Mix series. And we're back at fall in Honey Hollow. The only thing that sucks is because Ellie's so hot right now that it didn't feel like I was reading it with them, you know, like a lot of the times we're experiencing the same weather. So unfortunately it was 90 degrees and they're like, oh, it's chilly. I'm like, no, it's not. Don't lie to me. Other than that, yeah, same thing happens. Lottie Lemon, she finds a dead body and then they go on a mission to figure out what's going on. This one had kind of two storylines going through it, which is cool. And I appreciate the difference in books because it is essentially the same story over and over again, even though I still like it. So I did enjoy the additional aspects. However, with such short books, it is hard to wrap up two different huge stories in a perfect little bow in like 230 pages. It felt a little wrapped up too easily. And this one, I did feel the same a few books ago too, when they had two different storylines. But also, I understand it's like number 12 or 13 in the series. You have to wrap it up all in one book. Like, I get it. It's a cozy mystery, you know? So I still loved it. So I'm not gonna lie. Still loved it. Still enjoyed it. But it wasn't my favorite Honey Hollow book. The next one I read was Violent Faculties by Charlene Ellsby. This one was crazy. So this one is written as...
Okay, sorry, I misspoke here. The very first page of this book says author's note submitted in partial fulfillment of the requirements towards application for tenure and promotion within the Department of Philosophy as evidence of research productivity. So it seems like this is the work that was submitted for tenure at the university, and it has the author's name on it, which is why I call her, the main character, a she, because that's how it reads. But I'm not 100% sure that the author is the same as the main character in the book, you know?
And it's from a professor of philosophy. And you find that there are budget cuts in that are going on in the school. And so she ends up abducting people and performing experiments on them. And she's also throughout the entire text using a lot of like previous philosophers' ideologies and stuff. That's all sprinkled throughout. It says that she's designed a series of experiments to demonstrate the value of philosophy as a discipline. So because of these budget cuts, not because of the potential for financial benefit, but because of the relevance to life or death. The corpses proliferate as her experiments yield theoretical results and ethical conundrums. She questions why it is wrong to kill humans, what it is about them that makes their life sacred, and then attempts to find it in their bodies, their words, their thoughts, and their souls, seeking foundational truths with a knife in her home office. Okay, this one, super heavy on philosophy. If you guys are into philosophy, if you guys are knowledgeable about the subject, you'll probably really enjoy this book. It's really interesting. So, for example, she discusses Descartes and how he was talking about how wax was wax, so it's the same if it's in solid form or if it's in melted form. Like it still is wax regardless of how it looks. And she was arguing that that's not quite true because you can't pick up a pile of wax and put it in your pocket. You can't hold wax. Hard wax won't burn you. Like there are different characteristics that make them different. And so she abducts a woman named Renee, get it? And she performs an experiment to kind of prove her theories, right? So that's kind of the basis of it. However, this story goes dark. Like there are some genuinely fucked up things in here. And so this is the kind of stuff I love, right? It's intelligent, it's philosophical, it gives you a lot to think about, but it's also fucking dark. But few and far between, you know, like it's not just like horror front to back. But there are scenes where she abducts Sigmund Freud and cuts holes in him and him. It's just a weird fucking book. However, I did really enjoy it. I mean, I know I didn't understand all of the philosophy, but I think she breaks down enough of it for you to kind of enjoy, at least be able to get through it and have some semblance of, oh, that was a cool read. But there were definitely things that I missed and definitely parts of the story where I'm like, oh, how exactly does this connect? I wish I was smarter, but so excited to read more of her work because this is the kind of shit I live for. And I was just reading this thinking, what a cool day and age that we live in, that you can take this philosophical, thought-provoking text on what it is to be human and budget cuts in a school, and then cut people open and fuck them, you know? Like, it's just a cool juxtaposition. So anyways, I'm not recommending this to anyone. It is definitely dark and fucked up. So yeah, and I keep thinking every month, nothing will surprise me. And then I read more books and I go, oh, yep, that surprised me. The next one that I read was We Used to Live Here. This is by Marcus Keeler. This is his first novel, and I did not know anything going into this. One, or actually I think maybe a few of you recommended this to me, and so I was like, okay, I'll pick it up, I'll read it. First of all, cover fantastic. I'm not even gonna go into too much of the story because I think this is one where if you go in blind, you'll probably have a little bit more fun. It's about these two women. They just buy a house together. Their job is buying houses, renovating them, and then reselling them. So they buy this older house kind of in the middle of nowhere, and they're only there for a few weeks when a strange family shows up on the door, the man claiming to have lived there when he was younger and asking if he can tour the place really quickly. And so she's hesitant to let him in, and she ends up letting him in, and he goes on to tell some stories from his childhood that leave her a little bit unsettled. And then more strange things keep happening. It's also interspersed with forums online or reports or things like that. So it's just an interesting little book. And about halfway through, I was like, I have no idea what's going on. And I just thought that this was a really fun read. I got to the end and I was like, wow, that was fun. I will be honest, there definitely were times when I'm like, oh, this is too many twists and turns. If things are too weird or too twisty or turny, I kind of tap out. But I think it all came back around pretty cool. I loved the ending. I thought that this was a fun read. It's kind of like the perfect book for maybe my generation or younger, like the people that grew up online on forums. My favorite part of this was there's somebody talking about a toy on a forum and some snarky ass reply like, oh, well, that's actually not that toy and you should have posted this on a different forum. And I was just like, this person has mastered how people speak online. I thought that that was really cool. But yeah, there's a lot to pay attention to in here. Like if you read this book, pay attention to names, pay attention to addresses, pay attention to, like, you do have to keep your eyes open a little bit, but I'm also very excited to read this like in the future again a few times and just see what I missed out on because I had such a blast with this. I thought it was fun. I'm also searching for a little bit deeper meaning because there are a few things that I haven't quite connected. I guess I can't go into too much detail because I don't want to give anything away, but still a blast. I like that one. Let me know how you guys felt about that if you've read it. And then the last one that I read was First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. If you follow me on Goodreads, this one I've been reading for a very long time. And I read it, I think it must have been back in March because that's when I broke my phone. I was listening to it on audiobook. So I broke my phone and then I stopped listening to it. And then it's just, once I disconnect from something, I just forget it exists. And then anytime I would see my profile on Goodreads, I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta finish that book. So I can't even really give you an idea of how I felt about it. I think it was interesting. I liked how everything wrapped back up at the end, but I can't really rate it just because I've been reading it for so many months. But it's basically about this woman and she works for a man that she doesn't know who he is, and she does kind of jobs for him, whether that be stealing something or, you know, doing something illegal to help someone else. She is working for this man and she gets put on this job, and she starts to feel like it's more like a test than it is an actual job, and then the story continues from there. So it's a cool concept, and at first I was like, I wasn't really into it because I'm like, there's no way stuff like this exists. But I think I'm honestly just naive. And so once I got more in the story, I was like, I'm sure people do stuff like this all the time. But I could never do this. I'm the worst liar ever. So this would be a terrible job for me. But yeah, I think it was interesting. And I did like how it wrapped up at the end. So I just finished it tonight, and I actually did enjoy the ending and how everything kind of came together. So I do think it's worth the read. It's up to, I guess, what your preference is in the thriller novels. So that is my reading wrap up for the month. I'm very excited to jump into my Halloween reads. I will see you soon with another horror video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought about these. And yes, okay, thank you. Okay, bye.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.